There should be more clapping when I come over. That's better. That's better. Thank you very much. Television is integral in our society, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about today about you watching more TV. And I know that is like the least English teachery thing I could possibly say, and I know that it's shocking to you that a guy who's made his living off the written word would stand here and say, you need to watch more television, but I'm saying you should be watching more TV. Now, when I was a kid, growing up, 80s, 90s, I'm 40 years old now, I was a latchkey kid. And I don't know if you guys know what that means or not, but that means my mom worked. I was raised by a single mom. She worked, and so sometimes I'd have to let myself in after school. I'd have to take care of myself for a little bit until she got home. And when I was supposed to be doing my homework, most of the time I was watching television. And then she'd come home, and I'd, scamper around and try to make it look that I was doing more than I actually did. But the TV shows that I watched during that time in the 80s and 90s, not exactly like the shows that you guys have today or that my kids have today. There was a lot of garbage back then. There's a lot of garbage now if you watch The Kardashians or if you watch The Bachelor. Not exactly, high-end television. But what you have access to today is far greater than what I had access to. So, for instance, let's talk about children's television. So, I had Sesame Street growing up, and Sesame Street is fantastic, and you guys had Sesame Street, and my kids have Sesame Street growing up, right? And it's brilliant, it's fantastic, it's been on the air for 40 years, but now when I watch TV with these two, it's a little bit different than Sesame Street. There's so many more choices. I am a dad, 2 little girls. Aubrey is 5, Alyssa is almost 3, and I'm not ashamed to admit that we watch a good bit of television. Now, my girls, they do gymnastics, they play outside, they have art time, we play board games, we have family time. But really, television is something they like a great deal because who doesn't? And I feel comfortable now letting them watch a good bit more TV than I think people tell us we should. There's all kinds of studies about screen time, how long you should allow your kids to sit in front of a screen. And my wife and I, we focus very hard on trying to keep track of that when we can. But TV now for kids, when we do watch it, when I get to watch it with them, it's just so much better than when I was little. Like, for instance, the Storybots on Netflix. This is a show that takes simple, scientific questions that kids ask. Why is the sky blue? And how do we catch a cold? Why can't I eat dessert every night? These are actual episodes of Storybots. And it answers them with accessible scientific backing. And it does so with bright colors and songs and cutaways and things to keep kids' attention. And at the end of the episode, my daughter's not only singing a song about an apatosaurus, which was a cutaway, but she also can tell me that the B blood cells activate the T blood cells, and that's what protects us from getting a cold. And that's from one TV show. And again, I'm not saying to park them in front of the TV set, but it's a little bit more comfortable nowadays. We also have Daniel Tiger. If you guys are not familiar with Daniel, he is a godsend for parents. He is fantastic because Daniel teaches us emotional intelligence. I do often say it's the one show that if I left on a continuous loop and my daughters did nothing but watch Daniel, I would be okay with that because all Daniel does is teach emotional intelligence. Everything from cleaning up after yourself when you're done. Clean up, pick up, put away. Mr. Skirbin, sing with me. Clean up. Every day, or what happens when you lose someone that you love. It deals with everything from cleaning up to death. And this is the kind of show in a I want to answer these questions for my daughters. But sometimes the researchers on this, the people they speak to build Daniel Tiger, not only from the great legacy of Mr. Rogers, but from the PhDs and the EDDs and the doctors they have working with them, they present it accessibly to kids. On top of that, you've got Blaze and the Monster Machines, right, that teaches STEM skills, and Wally Kazam that teaches phonetics. And there's a long list of children's shows that really are educational now, more so than I think there have ever been. So that makes me address, what about us? What about older kids? What about adults? What TV is out there for us that's making us smarter? And there is an anthropologist who studies in Canada. His name's Grant McCracken. And Dr. McCracken has said on numerous occasions that he believes television is the one medium now that's really working to expand our attention as opposed to shrink it. Because what he says is, in a world where we are so caught up in how quickly we can change our minds and what we have access to information-wise, television still presents us with these long story arcs. We're invested. We get to watch and we get the payoff at the end, the cliffhanger of the episode. We get to watch these characters develop. And this is a lot different than TV was even 15, 20 years ago. When I grew up, TV was what we call passive. You were a passive watcher. It would sometimes control your life. If I wanted to watch a show, I had to be home to watch that show. I couldn't do things if I wanted to watch it. I mean, I could set the VCR, but if you guys have ever seen a VCR, if you even know what a VCR is, it's not the easiest thing to set, to operate. So if I wanted to watch the newest episode of a show, I had to be home to watch it. It could control people if it let them. And the storylines were very simply, like, starts here, ends here. Not a lot of intricacies to the stories. The era we live in now with television is called non-linear TV. You guys have experienced this for the majority of your lives. What non-linear TV is you guys have access to episodes of shows whenever you want them, right? On Netflix, when they release it, it's not one a week. They are releasing entire series at a time. So you get to control when you watch, how much you watch, what you're watching, and you are able to adjust that to your life. And the stories themselves are deeper and richer than they've ever been. The character development is more involved, and the writing is more interesting, and there are multiple plots and threads. Think about, too, the interaction that you have with people regarding television. You guys think about how many hours you've spent discussing TV shows with your friends, especially the smarter shows. The ones where you're talking about, well, how the plot is going to turn, or who killed whom, or what else is happening. You've discussed this. And this is what gets our brain working. There is another gentleman, Stephen Johnson, who wrote a book back in 2005 called Everything That's Bad is Good for You. And in there, he addresses the idea that television, or I believe he refers to it as non-literary popular culture, makes us think in ways that reading never could. And so we should experience this to our levels. Now, he doesn't just talk about television, he talks about other forms of media. But in there, he discusses television and how it's grown and it's made us smarter in the era of fan fiction and blogs and social media and how people are constantly talking about it. Television now is making us think more than we've ever thought about it in the past. I will not stand up here and tell you that TV replaces reading. It doesn't. It's just scientifically proven. If you want to become smarter, if you want to become more creative, if you want to become more empathetic, you read. That's it. But what I am up here to do is defend television in that as a second option, it is not the monster we've made it out to be. We shouldn't be vilifying or demonizing television because it is, in certain situations, something that we can enjoy, which kind of brings me back to the Kardashian thing that I mentioned earlier. I might regret saying this, but the Kardashian show is not all bad. It's not all completely terrible. Because on top of learning from TV, what we should be able to do every now and then is shut our brains off. You're pretty stressed up here, right? I mean, that's kind of one of our calling cards up here, is everybody's always stressed. I hear that every day. And why then is it so bad to go home, put the stuff aside, and just watch a screen for a while? Lose ourselves in something, escape into something else that's not our reality. You don't do it for hours and hours, but why is it so bad to shut our brains off? It's not. We need that rest every now and then. And so I say to you guys, considering the break that you might need, considering the educational elements of it, it doesn't quite replace books, but I will tell you, I think you need to watch more TV. Thank you.